Okay, everybody, thanks for joining me. We are on Meet a Raven Miner. I'm your host, Hype Man, and today joining me is Josh. Josh is the president of the Universal Mining Group. So thanks so much for joining us, Josh.
Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be on your show.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a blast. So just go ahead and tell the audience, when did you first get into cryptocurrency and maybe cryptocurrency mining?
Yeah, I first knew of cryptocurrency back in like 2012. I had a buddy in college. When I was in college, I had a roommate and he came up with this like patent. He was a huge ice fisher and he was in Minnesota where I'm from originally. And so he came up with this patent to put a bubbler which would break the surface tension on his Vexlar camera where you would find like the fish or whatever, and you put it down. And so his father was actually a patent attorney, which made it convenient to get that patent. And Vexlar ended up buying that patent for, it was like $100,000. But when you're a kid or whatever, in college, your first freshman year, like it was just ridiculous. So he took all that money and put it in Bitcoin. So that's where I first learned of cryptocurrency. He's coming, I'm getting married. He's coming to my wedding. I'm going to his wedding. He's actually getting married himself this year. But that was my first kind of exposure to cryptocurrency in that realm. Now, of course, me being cynical, I was like, I don't know anything about this. I can't believe he did it. So it took me many more years to get to that step. And I actually got to that step. I think I bought my first Satoshi or version of whatever of the Bitcoin back at the high last year, in March or April, right before Elon said that tweet, and then it just nosedived or whatever, because the Dogecoin and switching out. Yeah. That didn't discourage me, didn't do anything. I'm from a financial background, so just dollar cost averaging at that point and taking that approach. So I kept buying, kept going, and with the Bitcoin was very happy. Obviously markets work their way back. And then I got into mining in August. So I started kind of my research in August, and that's kind of where I found Ravencoin. I found through kind of one of their, I was really interested in the America project with Patrick Burns, and he like low leveled in an interview once, dropped like, oh, if you don't know about Ravencoin, check it out. And that's kind of how I ended up drawing that conclusion about Ravencoin. So, and then I started mining.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's in the Ravencoin community, Patrick Burns, a little bit of an inspiration, and what Ravencoin represents. So doing these interviews for me and interviewing Ravenites is what's fun to me, and building this Ravencoin content, right? So August of 2021. So you're about 6 months into your Ravencoin journey. So basically, are you doing anything on the Ravencoin blockchain yourself?
Yeah, and that's where starting the company and getting it together. So I came from a financial background industry, predominantly investment banking with commercial real estate, skyscrapers and stuff like that. It's just boring. Cryptocurrency does have a lot of those same property values from tax purposes as essentially like property. That's how the IRS looks at that. And then an actuarial background as well. So with like looking at numbers and big data and composing all that. But my twin brothers, who I'm also in business with, he comes from an energy background, and his energy background was, just focused in the commodity markets and oil and stuff like this. But through that background, he's met people who have then done that. He's met people like chemical engineers who have come up with technically a new form of fuel. And so that's where kind of like this idea of combining fintech with energy is developing. And that's something that hasn't really been brought to the energy industry. So fintech has brought solutions to a lot of integrated industries, but it has traditionally stayed away from the energy industry. And I think there's, a hesitation in energy just because with the way that oil is tied very much to the Federal Reserve note. And so Indeed. Maybe that's why cryptocurrency can start bridging those gaps. And that's where we're building on a project where we're hoping to at least finance in a way this new sort of fuel that's going to be developed, because traditionally, banks don't want to take a risk with something like that, and or in other instances, whether you go to the Department of Energy and grants and stuff like that, financing can only go so far. So if the banks don't find a way to bring you in, how do you bridge that gap? And that's actually where I think Ravencoin comes in ingeniously to bridge that gap. So
that's really cool. I think a lot of the debate about, Bitcoin mining and energy usage is, to me, I was like, we're in 2022, and I think it's going to be a travesty if in the next 20 years we don't make some significant breakthroughs in energy technology. Like, I think it's been held back because of oil,
yes.
and I think that development will change so much so it won't matter. I don't think the energy usage will matter in 20 years. I hope not, at least, but
I agree with you. I agree 120% with you, because that's the idea behind this, because with the energy usage, in my opinion, proof of work is the only concept that works. When you talk to, proof of staking or whatever, POS, I call it proof of shit, but that's just me personally. And not that I was, I'm against, when I first broke into cryptocurrency, I'm not going to lie. I didn't know the difference. I really didn't. I mean, I'm still very new. I'm like, what, 6 months, 8 months, almost coming up on my 1 year of buying, a version of Bitcoin or whatever, a little Satoshi of Bitcoin. But, that's that discussion or whatever. I don't think proof of work will ever go away. It has too many properties when it comes to security, decentralization, and that's what we need to ensure the integrity of the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I agree. I think the decentralized aspect of Ravencoin and how it all works in the community itself is what really makes me inspired to be a part of it. I think you get in where you fit in, but I think you can fit in however you may fit in, even if it's just you're a member of the community and you have a very small amount of Ravencoin. But the community is growing every day. So let's talk more about your mining farm in particular. What kind of equipment are you running?
Yeah, first, so I didn't know anything when I bought my first GPU. I kind of was like, boom, just buy, let's see what comes up. So the first one I bought was a 3090, and I paid way too much money for it. I'm not going to lie. Looking back, you get started and you're like, oh my goodness. So it's brought all my GPUs up in price, because I look at it from a very big business perspective.
Sure.
But that first one, I think I paid $3,009 for a 3090. I had no idea what it meant or did or anything. I just said, okay, this is the one then. Let's get this one. But let me see. So then I found the arbitrage and I started learning more about the algorithm, Kapow, and all that stuff. I don't know if you know this, but the LHRs or whatever, which low hash rate, 3080s, those don't work on Ethereum. But for whatever reason, Kapow, it doesn't really have in my opinion, it doesn't have a delusion of hash rate. So our 3090 runs 55 or 56 hash rate with how I only run things on the 80% that I heard, like the magic 80%. But the LHR 3080s, and if you don't know this, I'm bringing it to you. I run it and I get 46 or 44, depending on, whatever it's doing or whatever. So from a hash rate perspective, I think a lot of people stay away from those LHRs because they're concerned with them, like, oh, I'm going to have lower hash rate. But if you're not mining Ethereum or you have no ambitions to or purpose, I found there's a pretty good arbitrage because you can pick up the 3080s on that, like $14.99 typically.
Yeah, I did know, and I think it's maybe not common knowledge, but I think a lot of people do know that when you're mining Kapow, it's not affected with LHR. Good. But I think that is very good information to share in this video anyways, because a lot of people may not know that. And I think a lot of people mine, or at this point in time, still mine Ethereum with 3080s if they're regular, so, right. So
TI, do you know what a TI is? Because I don't know.
So the TI is just like, I don't want to misspeak, but typically it is like a faster version of whatever. So, like the 3080 Ti is going to be faster than the 3080. 3070 Ti is faster than the 3070. I think maybe it's a memory thing. Maybe there's more memory or the memory is faster. It's basically, that's kind of how they do most of their things. Like, I have a 1080 Ti and I have like a 1070. And so, you know, the 1080 Ti on Ravencoin runs like 25 mega hash on Kapow, but it's at like 185 watts. So it takes a lot of power for that compared to like a 3060 is like 30 mega hash at, you know, less, maybe 150 watts or something like that. I don't have a 3060 Ti, but it's something like that. So they're getting more efficient. So that's the thing about the newer cards. If you're buying newer cards, and like you said, it's cool to see that you went from buying a very expensive 3090 to finding, you know, basically a loophole in the Kapow algorithm that they're not affected by the lower hash rate cards. So, you know, I think you could buy even 3060 Ti lower hash rate cards and run it on Kapow and have, you know, super great efficiency too, if you want to run a rig like that. So I think that's what some people are thinking about doing for the really efficient rigs, you know.
Yeah, and that's where I have found running the numbers. The efficiency definitely works. When I build a mining rig, so we're running 910 hash rate. When I build a mining rig, so I also very new to it. I started my first electrical fire and I scared the crap out of my fiance. She was like, "You're gonna burn down the house, you know, get this out of here." And we've evolved, right? That's part of that evolution. So we've come from burning down the house to cutting a hole in the house for ventilation when you see the farm or whatever. So there was that level of, you know, getting comfortable. But so when I build I have found that because I think the LHR 3080s use 200 watts, or maybe it's 240. I have my sheet right here. 1 second.
Yeah, if you have your overclocks handy, if you know what you overclock your memory or your core clock and you run power.
Yeah, I do actually.
That's free to share all that because
yeah, that's
cool
actually great. That's a great idea actually. So because there's not a lot. So in the community, it was very hard for me to find, you know, I pieced together a bunch of different miners videos to find exactly what I was looking for. And that was one thing. They do have, like, the Voskcoin guy did do a build or whatever, and that really helped kind of get my feet wet. Per se, there may not have been, when I was building, anything truly specialized to Ravencoin. And that could actually be a good idea to do like a walkthrough build video. I have not been successful in finding, like, I can't do a very good job of combining multiple power supply units to a rig. I found that I'm just not good at that. With that being said, when I buy a mining motherboard and it has like 3 GPUs, you know, then I know I can match it to 3 3080 LHRs and just have a farm go right away. And then the cost on something like that, you know, traditionally, let's see, I go over the cost on something like that. A build like that with 3 GPUs is like $5,660. You know, finding you're getting your motherboard, your Intel chip, your solid state hard drive. I put everything on its own individual mining frame. And Amazon actually has this one guy who ships them with little power, like, buttons that turn it on and off. So I really like that guy. And he gives a screwdriver in each one for some reason. So that guy is really good. And they're like $60 a frame or something. And then when I build that, and those and then the power supply unit, I've been using EVGA because I started the electrical fire using an off-brand power supply unit. So I just got nervous doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I have EVGA's power supply too. I'm running, it says like 700 watts of graphics cards, but I have a 750 and 1,000 watt, and I just have it split. Okay. And so the way I have mine done is, like, I have the one power supply where it's basically plugged into a thing. So once I flip the switch, it's on. So it has 4 graphics cards. So I basically turn that on, the 4 cards come on, and then I go over and turn my button, which turns on the other 2 graphics cards and the motherboard and everything else. So that's when everything really comes on. And so the only downside to that is, like, if I have to restart it, you know, like, a lot of times you'll have to go flip that switch manually. So, you know, that's the one downside. I could do it the other way where everything is linked together. I just haven't changed it. And I like the way it works this way. And I'm always at my house. If I go on vacation, I turn it off, you know, stuff like that. So I try to be as safe as I can. Yeah, I have a smoke detector right next to me, and, you know,
It's fun. It's funny because that was the biggest hurdle. We did go on vacation, and the I had that very big debate, and at the time we only had one, so I'm like, I feel comfortable just running it through, through the vacation. We were gone for 2 weeks, and it survived.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would do it necessarily totally unsupervised again. And we had a camera on it, and my neighbors, know my garage password, so there was integration. Getting back to your overclock settings, I was able to get up my sheet. It was saved in a different thing. For 3080s, I use 100 core setting, 100 or 1800 memory setting. I do the fan speed at 100, but I do know that some people recommend at 80 because those fans wear out over the course of the life of the equipment. And I think you actually are replacing a fan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I actually replaced one fan on my 570, and that was like $12. And then the fans for my 2060 started going out, but I actually took them off, got all the dust off of them, put them back on, and it has a wobble still, but it's not. It works, and I'm running all my cards on 100%. I actually made a poll on Twitter, and people said, replacing fans is cheap, replacing GPUs is not. So, I was like, okay, well, that's a good mindset. So since then, and I've actually noticed a huge, obviously decrease in temperature since I've, because some of my fans were on like 70%, but I was still in the 50s or low 60s. So it wasn't bad, but now it's like, they're like all in the low 50s for the most part. And, a day like today, it's 36 degrees out. And I think it's, thermostat says it's 72 over there, and above my mining rig, it's 74 degrees right there. So, it's very comfortable. The heat is not on right now. So the living room's warm, and it's right next to me, but you can't hear it, hopefully.
No.
So do you have to do anything where you live I mean, obviously you're ventilating, anything else you're doing, and do you notice, heat temperatures? And on any of these cards, what are they Zotac, or any of them Zotac? And are you having to do anything for the memory temperatures? Are you having super high memory temperatures?
No, I haven't had anything like that. We do and I'm gonna butcher the guy's name, the Ventrilli effect or whatever. That was a guy who came up with pressure systems. So when you create a low pressure and high pressure system, that's why you see our heat exhaust fan way up there when you insert the video. When you do that, what happens is you have a wide low. So we keep the garage cracked about this much, and then that actually creates a pressure effect where the air pressure essentially comes in, goes up and goes out, and that runs enough cool air basically up over the rigs. So I've never had pressure systems. I do have Hive OS, and I use Telegram to monitor. Hive OS does a great job of integrating that, actually. And it doesn't even bother me. I know, like, when you get so many farms, and that's an arbitrage. Like, oh, well, you could get 12 rigs on one farm, which I tried to do right away. I was like, oh, I'm going to have 12 on one. But then I realized, like, if that one farm goes down, you lose 500 hash. And it's like, it kind of, for me, I'm better at making them smaller, and it does take up a little bit more real estate, but I make them smaller, and then I don't feel as pressured when one rig goes down, and then another one. And then also, I think it also dissipates a lot more of the heat because of that. And then it's $3 a month or something on Hive OS per rig, which doesn't bother me at all. I mean, ultimately, there could be an arbitrage there, but it is a tax deduction. So, you bring in income.
Look on the bright side.
That's right. That's right. And then it's 280 power is just getting back to the overclock settings. I run the 3080s on 280, not 200. I misspoke on that.
The 280 watts sounds about right, because I know they can run like maybe 300 or
304. I think I had one at 304, and the hash rate was 49 versus 46. So I just dialed it back to that 80% rule.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I think that's in general a pretty good spot to be. Some people can be more aggressive, but I think longevity is really the way to go if you're making it a business. And if you're trying to stack Ravencoin, I mean, right now, I know the first 3 days of February, I have 100 mega hash, and
Yeah.
I averaged, I think, 85 Ravencoin a day. I got 255 Ravencoin in 3 days on 100 mega hash, which is great. You know, that's really good numbers right there, just with the difficulty and where everything's at.
Yes.
So I'm always monitoring, difficulty. Sometimes I make the post, state of the Raven, what's going on, how
Yeah.
many Raven coin are you going to get per 100 mega
I
hash?
actually
Because
used, yeah, you're right on that, because I used your number to get to my number too, and I was like, no, that's actually right. So I like that, and I appreciate that content.
yeah, I mean, it's easy to scale that up, because if you're almost at 1,000, you can
Yeah.
just, you would be getting 850 over those 3 days ish.
Yeah.
So with your
Yeah, we're at
910,
900, so
so
we get 715, somewhere in that range.
which is
We
awesome.
Yeah, we do. So with that, we do, like, I use Flypool as my mining pool, and I know they take a 1% fee. Eventually, where I'm taking this company, I appreciate Flypool's ability to have the integration they do, because I think it allows a very transparent auditing. Because if you know your Ravencoin wallet ID on Flypool, you can go in, you can look at the history, you can build all the reports you need to build, you can integrate, and for tax purposes, you can integrate it back into like what you should be theoretically paying in taxes. So I really appreciate Flypool. I know there's other pools, but I have found from an integrity standpoint that if I needed to be transparent with my numbers, I can download their CVS file and start doing the data I need for that.
Yeah, so since you have this financial background, did you do anything in particular with your payout scheme?
Yeah, once a day. So once a day and minimum 500 Raven. So we brought it up a little bit. There are times where you get two payouts in a day, just because I think payouts are timed right now at 1800 or 18 hours. Somewhere with difficulty, we've had it as low as 17. I think one was as low as 12, which I don't know if they had a bunch of luck or something.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to complain about it. But I did do that, where I think eventually where this company would be going would need that type of level of transparency. It's one of my values. I think transparency is really important. And so that's why we use Flypool for that.
Well, that's cool. It's a cool reason. It's a cool, just to get your mindset and understanding, because I think the more people really take it as a business. I've switched. I mean, I've been working on my taxes for last year, and
Yeah.
there was some times where I had like 10 Raven payouts. It's just 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And I was, I'm copying, pasting, deleting, and, basically trying to make it presentable to myself. I'm like, if I can understand it, the IRS can understand
Exactly.
it. So, I'm gonna, make it right. So, but I've switched to getting like one payout a day. So for me, I set it to 60. And I'm getting like, 65. And then like, basically, like you say, on the 3rd, I got 2 payouts that day. And so I got a payout yesterday, and I'm sure I'll get a payout today. So, every once in a while, you'll just get a double payday. So that's cool. It's cool that, that's how it works, and using different tools, different mindsets, different strategies. That's really what this channel is about for, me, the Raven miner, getting as much information collectively for Ravencoin miners in particular, and, sharing these, different hash rates.
One second.
No problem. Get them, Luna.
I might have to be in at it. Fiance was at the gym and came home, so
Oh, no
I didn't
problem at
think
all.
she would hear.
I'm sure she's just excited to go see mom.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Do you have any advice to somebody that is just going to get into Ravencoin mining in particular, as far as, entry level things in particular? Any tips you have?
Start today there, and one, don't ever have the mindset like I missed the boat. I think that, a lot of people, even me coming to crypto, back in April last year at the not the all-time high, but with the dip and all that, don't ever feel like you missed the boat. That's not a mentality I have in this market. And then the other thing I think is start early and start often, get your feet wet and jump in the deep end. I mean, you'll be surprised. Most people can learn to swim quite quickly. I think dogs are great at learning to swim. I know with your dog training too. So like, I would just jump in the deep end. I wouldn't hesitate. The community has more than enough information. And there's obviously people like you that you could reach out to, you know, or myself, if you ever want to learn about like tweaking or something like that. I have no background in computers. I mean, before this, there was absolutely no background that I had. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. So.
Well, that's cool. That's inspiring. You know, I was a gamer and I've tinkered. I built my own computer, and so. But honestly, I hesitated for a long time. I watched the YouTube videos like all 2018, 19. I mean, I got into it last year myself, and I just started with my 1070. I moved it out of my. I mean, I had my desktop PC here on the ground next to me with my 1070 in it and my 2060 hanging out the side with the riser, just sitting like on a book. And it was like that for quite some time. And then I got the rig and I just got cheap, you know, 570s off of eBay. They're used cards, but I've replaced the thermal paste. I had to replace the fans on that one. So, you know, but it's fun. It's a fun hobby. You know, it's a pretty passive income, honestly, once you get it going. And I think tweaking and playing with Hive OS and playing with your cards, and Son of a Tech made a tweet today that said, I'm just going to change one more set. No. And like the rig crashes, and it's so relatable, you know, because everybody does that. And
he's a great help. He was the guy. Thank you for bringing that up. Son of a Tech was the guy that I watched to build he does build Ravencoin, and he was great. In fact, he's inspirational in that, and he knows like everything of what he's doing. So yeah, thank you for bringing him up. I did watch him. Yeah.
Well, honestly,
he's in Canada, isn't he?
I'm not sure, honestly, but I tell people that Son of a Tech is somewhat my inspiration for making my channel, because he just seems like such a normal guy. And I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. What's stopping me from making some content? And maybe people will watch, maybe people won't. But if anything, I'm putting Ravencoin content out there to the world, and I'm enjoying doing it. So I think that's really all that matters to me. So kind of going forward with 2022 and your business and everything that's going to be happening, you know, what are some goals you have? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, so I've been saying Ravencoin's not one project to the moon, it's many projects to the stars, because the truth is a lot of people can build very intricately exactly what they're doing. And my philosophy is a rising tide raises all ships. So, you know, what we're doing in this instance with the fuel is, you know, obviously proof of work mining requires energy. So that specific portion is looking at building a way where people can invest in that guy's concept. I wanted to share a story. Do you know who John Tucker is, or have you ever heard that name?
I don't think I'm familiar, but go ahead.
And what about like runs like a Tucker? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Okay, so that, first of all, he was a car manufacturer. He ended up his most famous invention, quote unquote, is windshield wipers. He kind of came up with that electric windshield wipers, but he also came up with things like seat belts. So, you know, you use them every day, but you didn't know that no one might know that inventor. That was that guy. And in the day, he created an engine, and that engine was a great engine. That's where you get the phraseology runs like a Tucker, because it was an engine that would never break down. And so he went to a bank. I think it was JP Morgan, possibly. I might have the story wrong. It was obviously before my time, but when he went to this bank, he built his factory and life was good. And upon building this factory, his competitors, the big three, as you can imagine, Ford, General Motors, and Chevrolet or whatever, they came in and said, whoa, what are you doing building an engine that can last forever? Like, we love the resale market for parts and equipment. Like, let's pump the brakes here. So he ended up manufacturing 100 cars, and he got all the cars off the equipment line. But in order to keep going, that guy ran out of financing, because the banker at the time said, we're going to have to call your loan. You know, the money's due. And so he ended up, he ended up having his factory shut down, repossessed by the bank. And long story short, I think Ford actually came in and bought that factory. So like, there's a little, well, how did this happen type deal? But I think we can draw the conclusions of how it happened. The competitors put enough pressure on it, and so he ends up buying, you know, so the point of the story is it never got off the ground running. And there's lots of great inventions I get like this. Well, using the Ravencoin as the passive income, as the mining, now you have a way where, you necessarily don't need a company to go to a traditional bank in order to find that level of financing they need to get their proof of concept up and running. Like that is in itself kind of circumnavigating what, you know, we had. So like in our case, we have a group of engineers who has this great concept. They even have grant funding secured, but the grant funding can only go so far. The proof of work, they've been putting years into this concept. And the reality of the situation is they need the financing in order to carry the project forward. And that's where the whole fintech and the energy come together and stuff like that. A goal this year also is to take that. So that's one portion, one goal. Another goal is to do the traditional option, where I think a lot of older people, and I've engaged in some of this. So like mining pools did exist, like where people could buy into, that does exist, but I don't think there's a level of transparency there. And I've heard stories from my friends who are millennials where like they bought into the pool and then it shut down, and they kept, you know, the miners keep all the equipment, and they, you know, like they took the money and ran essentially. And so I think there's a way to find a solution where you can bring that level of, you know, the dollar cost averaging back and have a version of transparency. And then where I stayed in my portion, so my twin runs kind of the energy portion and all that, and that's more his expertise. And my version of this, where I'm going with something like this is, you know, we add value to your balance sheet. That's what I'm trying to say. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of businesses that do want to take the cash they have on hand and put it in something that's a store of value, like traditionally like banks, but also like insurance companies and stuff like that, because the cash is losing value over time. And so I think if businesses had a way, you know, even like your typical business like plumbers or electricians, I think if they had a way to go in and find a dollar cost average of what they're trying to, you know, what they want to add to their balance sheet, I think that would open up the market. And then there's some other things like eventually as you approach taxes and stuff like that, you know, there's very tax friendly legislation coming out in states like Arizona and Wyoming. And I think if those types of legislations can continue, like in my mind, you know, the community would come together and basically have it in a way where if you take cash and you put it into an investment strategy for long-term CapEx, then it would be considered a deduction for your business, versus right now there is no deduction. For you, there would be, like if I think you wanted to spend the Ravencoin on making dog NFTs, the IRS looks at that as like, as long as it's used in your product, it's a deduction for your business. There was a famous legislative case with art. So a hospital bought a bunch of art statues and put it in their hospital as like, and they're like, hey, we want to deduct the art. But the IRS said, no, you're not using it in your process. And then another hospital also bought that art and said, hey, I want to deduct the art. And then it went to court, and the hospital said like it adds an intrinsic value because the patients feel calmed by the art. So like there's a certain amount of minutia on that. And then the famous one is like an orchestra bought a violin that was 500 or 300 years old or something, and the IRS consider that a deduction. So I think as legislation evolves, ultimately, I think that's where cryptocurrency and crypto technology is going to bring the next level of innovation and financing to, I mean, really to open up open up the world. So
I agree. I think the world of investing is going to change a lot in our lifetime. You know, going back to runs like a Tucker, you know,
yeah.
Right now, if he was alive and it was a different time and he had Ravencoin, then maybe he could have tokenized Run Like a Tucker. And it just brings up, you know, like the GoFundMe thing, how they, you know, are a centralized thing controlling money, you know, and people are going to wake up and learn that there are different ways to control your money. And it's Bitcoin and it's cryptocurrencies. You can hold your own money. And I think that's huge, you know. I think I've said in another video like this, I put a check in the bank and they held my money for 10 days, you know, and, you know, it is what it is. It's how the financial system works, but it's my money and I couldn't use it for 10 days. So it just makes a point. So it's super interesting how everything is kind of hung up on legislation too, and how things will change. I want to talk a little bit about the business that you're running. Do you think you guys will potentially tokenize that business on Ravencoin?
Yeah, so that the idea will be tokenized. So what's going to happen is we're going to create the sub asset with these mining pools for this version. The energy has another thing that is going to most likely be tokenized. I can't really go into that portion of it. But the idea with the mining pool portion of it, the financing of it, it would be tokenized. You would send the sub asset and say your portion of your share to this mining pool is this sub asset. There's some legislative stuff, or sorry, some regulatory stuff I'm working on right now. So we've reached out to a law firm out of New York to find out what kind of licensing you need, what kind of registration and all that stuff. So really that's phase one. The goal is to make sure that the product has obviously the certifications to be legal and the compliance and all that, just all that minutia you need to make sure you're doing it. But I call it barriers to entry because like trying to do something good, but the truth is barriers to entry. It costs a lot of money to get that and stuff, but working towards that goal. So those sub assets would then be tokenized. Then comes the next phase. Okay, you buy the land, you build the project, you expand the mining farm. You probably bring in someone who's a little bit more technical than me to build it, someone who can build a little bit better, but you get the arbitrage with the financing and figuring all that. And then in the state of Washington, we're thankful because you gotta, so if you do a mining pool, like where I think a lot of regulatory stuff fell through is, okay, you get the first year, but who's really paying the taxes? Like there's a lot of minutia going on the back end on that I think that other mining pools have failed in that sense. And obviously it's not that I want to cannibalize any miners. The truth is I think competition in a decentralized model makes the most sense. But I think like I have neighbors who are a lot older than me and they every day they're like, you have that thing in your garage and that's so cool. How do I get in? How do I get in? Well, the reality of it is they're not going to ever set up a mining rig. They're not going to do that. But if they do start bringing their income into a field like this, that does raise the market cap of the entire, so we're $1 billion market cap. You know, I'd like to see us at $1 trillion market cap. I'd like us to take on the New York Stock Exchange and be a 28 million market cap. So that's the next phase. And I think that's bringing businesses into the market cap. That's bringing, you know, there's a creative way, and anyone who mines Ethereum right now and is buying Ravencoin, like keep it up. If it's more profitable, because that's taking Ethereum's market cap down and that's bringing Ravens up. So anyone doing that, like keep that up. As long as you keep buying the Ravencoin, don't buy the Ethereum and hold the Ethereum. You don't want the Ethereum, you want the Ravencoin.
Indeed.
But that would be to tokenize that, and shares would be. And then in projects like that, you would have your arbitrage. Electricity is obviously the biggest operating expense. So that's where you need to find it with this fuel. You know, fuel, I don't know if you know much about engine stuff and builds, but traditionally fuel is the best like return on energy. That's why we have like natural gas engines and all that. Hydro is really good. Hydro is very expensive. But the new micro dam system is really interesting. And I think, you know, there could be potential for smaller operations to break into hydro, whereas traditionally, like obviously building the Hoover Dam was expensive. But in states like North Carolina and states like the state of Washington, a lot of moving water, that's something you could definitely look at.
So cool that the business will be tokenizing in that aspect. That's really what I was interested in talking about.
Yeah.
At least getting some sort of idea that that's going to be something that's coming to Ravencoin. And we've seen, you know, a couple different real estate projects pop up, and you know they're tokenizing, and you know they are regulated and everything just like you. So I have a few people that I could probably hook you up with if you haven't talked to them in the Ravencoin community about a few things. So
you're the first.
Well, I'll be sure to send you a few people that I know have gone through some hurdles that may not be the same as you will have to face, but can maybe give you some experience that they've done and what worked for them. So I think that's
gracious.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing about this community is there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me, you know, and I might not know a lot of things, but you know, together we can do a lot of stuff. That's really cool for, you know, your 2022 outlook is really cool. I think if regulation can go your way and you can make some leaps and bounds, I think that'd be really cool. And you've already got some farms started. You know, you're making as much progress, I guess, as you can in the moment with what you have. So I think the project itself could be huge, you know, or it could be, as you know, I guess the investors will decide, I suppose. But yeah. Like I said, I'm super excited for the energy portion and to learn more about that when that becomes available.
Yeah.
Are there anything?
Ideally, that would be like all of a sudden you're filling your gas up with a new form of fuel. So a little more minutia on that too. So thankfully, engines, like back to these, engines, Chrysler Ram, if you 2022 engines that are turbo diesel, that can theoretically burn the same fuel that we're going down the road to create. So
Wow, that's crazy.
a little bit of a tune-up, I think a $1,500 tune-up, but I think like it would be as simple as that. It's just buying an engine that can handle it. Pretty much diesel would be kind of your equivalent on that. But then also for power generation or ships or stuff of that nature, that like there's a lot of, we feel fuel most at the gas pump, obviously. And then when it comes to price, you make it for pennies. So there's no more $7.50 at the gas and that's what they're paying in California. I'm glad I got out of that, but it's still, I think we're all feeling it at the pump, right? So.
That's crazy. Do you think with this technology and other technology of energy that where do you kind of see that going as far as can we apply this to more like larger scale systems at all?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, if through the process you get to market launch, it would be theoretically the entire shipping industry would be burning this fuel. The automotive industry would make that transition. Electrification's great in a lot of ways, but it's not going to be feasible because, and no, like not against Tesla or anything, but at the end of the day, when you get in a vehicle, you need to go more than 200 miles. There are times that require that ability to go more than 200 miles or 300 miles or 500 miles. And then cost of product. A lot of this fuel is made out of, it's not hydrogen, but it's made out of the same elements as water, nitrogen, and things like that. And its emissions are, of course, like water and nitrogen. But with that being said, like electric, my point, batteries, I guess, are made out of lithium, and lithium costs a lot of money. Water, so it's this, 70% of the planet is made out of water. So
yeah.
Then if you have an oil spill, I famously say you just call in the caterpillars, because the caterpillars can eat plants and building blocks. The building blocks of plants are nitrogen. So
it's very cool. It's very cool to see, how the world will change in our lifetime and how energy will change and how, proof of work, it does require energy, but we're exchanging energy for an electric currency, or cryptocurrency. So, yes. I mean, it has its value, and so as, like you say, our main expense is energy, so if we can have a more efficient energy, well, that's what miners need. So, I'm all about that and learning more about that and, investing my money into that. I think a lot of people would be interested in investing their money into that. So that's where it all ties back into Ravencoin, and I think that's the cool thing about it is it's bringing so many people together because you can just have an idea, and it's going to bring so many entrepreneurs just like you. I mean, if you can have this idea and you can think to execute it, obviously regulation's the hardest, hurdle to get around for execution. But I think with some determination and with talking to some other people I'll hook you up with, I think that hopefully you can make some progress this year and we can make some things happen on the Ravencoin blockchain. I'm excited for that.
Thank you so much. I am too.
Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share, about your project or about Ravencoin or anything else?
No, I would just say, I know the market's low and we all ride the highs and lows of the market, and it's up today. I saw that, but I just keep holding the long term. I think there's going to be some very prosperous projects built on this blockchain. I truly do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I know Leon Texas on Twitter, he's been talking about a Ravencoin wallet that's about to launch that a lot of businesses will be able to use. And it sounds like it's coming in the next
T0.
few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, T0, it's a little different, but this is a Ravencoin wallet particularly. So like we have like the core wallet.
We want to integrate that into our, we want to integrate that. I've seen hints on that. And if it's sort of like the Mango Farms, if it's sort of like that, I think that would be perfect for integration, because that builds in the industry, it's called authority. So if someone feels like they can come to my website and have that authority, because it's integrated with my business wallet or whatever. It takes away a barrier to entry for people to invest in a concept like that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is barrier to entry. Sometimes it's the barrier to entry into Ravencoin. Sometimes it's not being able to buy it on an exchange or not understanding how to do
Coinbase,
the
when
wallet.
are they going to do that? I mean,
Right.
they're missing out.
Yeah, they're it looks like they're checking it out. It's in review. So we'll see what happens. You know, I would like to see it happen. I think it would be good for our community just to have a lot of investors be able to easily have it. But you know, the way everything's working with regulation, I try not to keep any crypto on an exchange. I like to hold it on my own wallet. If
I rightfully so.
and if it gets, you know, like I say, I would hate for it to get banned on exchanges, but if it is, at least I have it in my possession and I'm not, you know, worried about it being in their custody. So I think that's a helpful tip to anybody watching this to, you know, you can be your own bank with cryptocurrency. You have to do it right and you have to do a little research, but I think it's not hard. And you know, I think most exchanges are probably trustworthy, but I don't know how it works if crypto gets, you know, regulated in certain facets. So I think to protect myself, that's my strategy, you know. So
we do. So we have a reserve fund that we have on a private wallet that, you know, I think it's just a Ravencoin wallet because of that exact reason. You know, when it comes to custodial and non-custodial, there definitely are some advantageous reasons for both. You know, some anonymity prospects that I do enjoy. You know, and not that like people think anonymity is bad or whatever. It's not, but then there's also like with the custodial and the trading and stuff. But if it ever does get pulled off a exchange or exchanges get shut down, you don't want to lose, obviously.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your money. It's, you know, they are not your keys, not your coins. So it's worth, you know, holding your own money. I was making a post the other day that I took my money off crypto.com because it's been there for, you know, the entirety of last year and they haven't enabled Raven deposits or withdrawals. So,
yeah,
you know, I took my money away from them basically, you know, and I'm holding it myself on my ledger. So I would rather that anyways, you know, but I hate that I had to, you know, like sell my Ravencoin, exchange it. So it's like I made a tax, you know, liability essentially, but
yeah,
I'm holding my coins now and so they'll be long-term holds at least.
And that's where I'm also hoping that some of that legislation changes is I hope I in my opinion, so like with real estate, it was always a 1031 reverse exchange, which would actually prevent you from having a taxable event if you rolled it up into real estate. And since the IRS looks like cryptocurrency is property, to me, it's, in my opinion, I think it's not it's almost criminal that they're saying, well, now it's a taxable event, when in reality, it's, in my opinion, it's not. I'm hoping like states like Arizona and Wyoming at least don't allow the taxing at the state level. Federal level, it's still going to happen. I like Washington State because it's only a federal level tax. There's no state income tax. But, you know, there's a really high sales tax here. Nice if they got rid of that.
I guess it has its pros and cons. And North Carolina does have a pretty good tax, but North Carolina also has a lot of money. So as a state, you know, it's a very wealthy state. They're always doing work, and I don't know exactly how much money the North Carolina is holding on to, but I know it's a lot of money. Like I think
it's attracting a lot of young talent.
Dollars.
If I did not go to the West Coast, I would have gone to the East Coast. So I looked at moving to North Carolina. So.
Well, it's cool, man. I've really enjoyed talking to you about Ravencoin and what you got going on. I'm really looking forward to the future of, you know, the Universal Mining Group and see what you guys got going on and what's coming down the pipe. So, you know, you guys, I'll post his Twitter down below if you guys want to go check out his Twitter and check out their website, check out what they're going to be bringing to Ravencoin. But if you have any final thoughts, I really appreciate your time.
Nothing. The only other thing I always say is build your nest egg. So nest egg, I play on Raven, build your nest egg.
Heck yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time, Josh, and you have a great rest of your Saturday, man.
You too, hype man. Take care, buddy.
All right. See you, man.